Welcome to the next episode of Brandland. I'm Garrett Justice, and today I'm joined by Carie Behe and Annie Agle from Cotopaxi. How are you both doing today?
Really well. Thanks for having us.
Doing good. Yeah. Thank you for having us, Garrett.
Well, it's so great to have you on the show today. I know many of our listeners are familiar with the Cotopaxi brand, but if there's any out there who aren't, Annie, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Cotopaxi story and what Cotopaxi does? Would you mind doing that?
Absolutely. Yeah. The high level description is that we are a mission oriented outdoor apparel and gear company. We are founded and still operate out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And we were founded in 2014 by Davis Smith and Stefan Jacob, who really wanted to use business as a way of alleviating and solving global poverty. And so every aspect of our business was really leveraged to have a positive social impact and mitigate any negative environmental and social impact. So we were the first legally formed benefit corporation to receive top venture capital funding. And we've since assessed and been certified as a benefit corporation, B Corporation. And so we just really try to operate in a values-oriented manner and are very blessed by a consumer base that is just very welcoming and hungry for brands that are earnestly practicing good corporate behavior.
I love it. And I want to dive into more of that too, because I know as you are the director of brand and impact there at Cotopaxi, you're thinking about a lot of this stuff all the time. So that is awesome. So Annie, tell us a little bit more about your background and how you became interested in working for Cotopaxi.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Park City, Utah. So I was born and raised in the mountains. So I've always been very passionate about the outdoors, skiing, hiking, just pretty much all of the outdoor activities have always been a huge foundational part of who I am and who my family is and who the community I surround myself is. But I really focused on international development. I started in the international development space at the height of the Afghanistan and Iraq interventions, which were very misguided and poorly planned. But I still had the opportunity to work in the policy space and help do a lot of research and guidance around how peace building and women's rights could be leveraged as community building and peace building mechanisms. But I got really frustrated by what I saw in the development sector. Less than 1% of the $1 trillion that goes to aid every year goes towards anything traceable or useful, which I think is a really tragic statistic. It's especially tragic when you're on the ground trying to advocate as a policy or program manager for really wonderful organizations or really intense situations that need attention. And you're just kind of dealing with this very bureaucratic, almost Byzantine system of aid and resource. So I really got very interested in innovation, human-centered design, ESG and impact investment, corporate social responsibility, and a lot of this kind of new way of thinking around social enterprise and corporate social responsibility and philanthropy. I have a background on the quantitative side, which I kind of mentioned to you earlier. I have a minor in chemistry and really did a lot of mathematics and science. And so I kind of have a very type A mindset, and a lot of the humanitarian sector I felt like wasn't very good at understanding how to place bets that actually were making a difference. It's really easy to just write a check, but to properly steward resources in ways that are really solving for systemic problems became a really big area and focus for me. And Cotopaxi kind of came on my radar when I was able to connect with the CEO, Davis. And it really kind of just took one conversation with him to really just make me want to work for the company. I was very committed. At the time, they were just looking for someone to help with their B Corp assessment. And I kind of joke that they brought me on just to do the assessment, and I kind of refused to leave. And so now I'm here 3 years later, and I just love the company. I've never felt happier in my working environment. It's been such a career highlight working here. And mainly because I get to work with people like Carie. Like, everyone on our team is so knowledgeable about corporate social responsibility. While it's my job to help steward that, I really don't have to do much in the way of education or making the business case for it, which is very unique. Most impact and sustainability officers have to convince companies to take this sector seriously and to see the strategy in it, but that's just never been the case at Cotopaxi. It's more, how far can we go as a company, and how much can we do to pilot best practices, and how can we pull more than our fair share of the weight. And the team I get to work with, everyone is so committed, and it makes the difference.
That's so awesome. I love it. So for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with a B Corp, right? It's a company that's a for-profit company, but also holds itself to high social, environmental performance standards as well. Is that right?
Yep, that's a great description, Garrett.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited again to dive into this, especially with your background, Annie. But before we do, Carie, tell us a little bit more about your background. I know you're fairly new to the Cotopaxi team. Is that right?
Yeah, so I just joined Cotopaxi in October, middle of October. So I've only been in this role for about 4 months, and it's a brand new role for Cotopaxi, go-to-market marketing manager. Really, what I have been doing so far is helping create process. I mean, really from the ground up, marketing process for how we bring all of our stories to market, product stories, collaborations that we do with other brands, impact stories. So really Annie's world, and like how we're telling the whole impact side of the brand, and then all of the product and the stories behind the product. So the sustainability aspect, the repurposed, the recycled aspects of our stories, our factories, really help building these campaigns and strategies and timelines to bring it to market. Prior to joining Cotopaxi, I've been an outdoor industry. I like to say I'm an outdoor industry lifer. I've been in the outdoor industry since I was a wee little marketing intern at Keen in 2007, like 2008. And that's how I got my start in the industry. And I would say kind of opposite of what Annie said when she shared her background of growing up in Park City, having this appreciation for the outdoors. Mine came much later in my life. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, where I was the daughter of like a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Like, my mom is like not a fun person to be on a Sunday when the Steelers are losing. And then my dad, who was more of that traditional sportsman, like hunter fisher. And I didn't want to sit in a tree stand at 5 a.m. in like the dead of winter of Pennsylvania. So I didn't really get into the outdoors too much until I went to college. I went to West Virginia University, which is in Morgantown, West Virginia. And not too many people know much about West Virginia unless you're from nearby, but like how much of this like beautiful outdoor mecca that it is. I mean, it's some of the best whitewater in the world, some of the best rock climbing in the country. And I got exposed to the outdoors through this program called Adventure West Virginia, where I got like credit as a freshman to like go for a week around the wilderness and explore West Virginia. And we'd have class around the campfire. I literally didn't know what backpacking meant until I had 50 pounds strapped to my back, and we were hiking to the highest point in the state of West Virginia, which in the grand scheme of things is not crazy high. It was like 52, 300 somewhere feet there, Spruce Knob. I forget the exact foot that it is, but I was so out of my element. But when I got to the top of Spruce Knob, I mean, I just fell in love with the outdoors and like the accomplished feeling that I had, and like this empowered feeling of like, I didn't feel like I met the look and feel of like that stereotypical outdoor person. I wasn't the fastest. I cried whitewater rafting. I didn't get to the top of the rock wall, like all of these fails. But I learned so much. I became a leader for that program 3 years later, and just got so into the outdoors, fell in love with like how much it impacted my life, and knew that I wanted to marry this field of marketing that I was getting into with my education with this love of the outdoors. So I got this internship with Keen and was there for about 7 years and worked my way up on their marketing team and got to just do some really cool stuff. And I think that's what set the foundation for me of working for a brand that really cares more about profit. And with Keen, really, especially, it was like this, we want to protect the places that we play. So that was very important to me. And that was being instilled in me of volunteering, giving back. I went on to a couple other companies during my time, was at Danner, was at Leatherman, and created a grant program there. Like giving back really wasn't in the DNA of Leatherman, and a lot of that was pushed back on me. And similar to what Annie said of just how with Cotopaxi, it's just so ingrained in us from the top down. Like it wasn't at some of the companies I've worked for. And I think I really realized that that's super important to me, that I want to be a part of a company that just cares more about profit, that we're putting planet and people ahead of that. And I think that's why I came to Cotopaxi. It really is wanting to work for something bigger than yourself. You know, it's not collecting a paycheck for me. Like I want to put my marketing skill set to use and help really do good. And Cotopaxi quite literally is that. So it's been a really fun 4.5 months so far.
I love that. It's an awesome background. It makes total sense how you got to where you're at. So, just hearing both of you talk about your backgrounds and about Cotopaxi, you can tell that Cotopaxi is a different company, right, than a lot of other outdoor companies. I mean, I have a lot of Cotopaxi gear. I love it. It's top of the line, great quality gear, but just hearing about the company and the impact and the focus, like you can tell that this is a different company than many other outdoor companies. And I think a lot of that has to do with the mission that's behind all of this. As we talked about what should our topic be today, you kind of proposed this idea, Annie, of advancing your mission through marketing. So I'm glad we have the marketer here and also the brand and impact person here, and we can kind of talk and dissect that. So Annie, on that point, how would you describe what the mission is for Cotopaxi today?
I mean, we're in business to solve global poverty in the Americas. Economic inequity is one of the biggest problems facing the world right now. And it's kind of under discussed. Poverty is such an overwhelming issue. It's really hard to wrap your hands around it. And Davis was really convinced as a consumer facing outdoor brand that was tapping into a very conscientious consumer base, that there was this opportunity to educate outdoor enthusiasts and not hardcore athletes. We really wanted to be welcoming, like a very welcoming outdoor brand, regardless of your background or your economic status or your ethnic status. We really just wanted everyone to kind of live a fulfilling life, while also kind of supporting a company that was leveraging all of its processes to the best of its ability to solve global poverty, especially in the Americas, given that our brand roots are really in South America. And so that's our mission. And we really, I'd say our approach to marketing, and Carie is such a partner in crime for me. And she is an example of just like our whole team. And frankly, any one of our team could come on this show and speak to our mission, which for me is just so refreshing. It's really nice to be in a company where corporate social responsibility is not this ivory tower. It's been very much adopted and lives alive and well in every single role and is championed in the hearts and roles of every employee. And our marketing team is really a great testament to that, of not just thinking about how mission can augment marketing, but how marketing can augment a mission, and how you can really get consumers to invest around a mission rather than just buying things. And no one needs to buy more things, right? And so it's just, I think it's really great to work with people like Carie, who are as experienced as she is at marketing, but also has experience in piloting a grant program, and who really gets what we're trying to achieve with marketing, which is more than just sales.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to dive into some of that more. You mentioned, a brand that supports a mission, or marketing that supports a mission rather than a mission that supports that brand or marketing. I want to come back to that. But before we do, Carie, for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with just the business model of how Cotopaxi works, tell us a little bit more about that. So how does Cotopaxi work to fulfill that mission through just the way that it's set up?
Yeah, I can speak to that on the product side of things. From what I've learned so far in my time is really from the product development side, we have about an 18-month window of time, this process will start from like the idea of a product all the way through to when it goes live to a consumer. So there is a decent runway time for us to go through a variety of processes and stage gates, understanding research trends and development of like what it's going to help inform that product, how it's going to take shape, what's the benefit to the consumer, why do they care about what we're going to make. So really just doing a lot of research to understand that part in the development process of the product. And then I think, where Annie's world collides with that is the sustainability aspect of it. Like, how can we, sustainably source a lot of the material that we are using? What's fair trade? Can we use repurposed materials, remnant factory scraps? I think our Del Dia collection of packs is a really great example of this business model, really coming to life through product of
which
using
is awesome.
factory.
For those listeners who haven't seen that, go check out that stuff, because it's pretty awesome, just using those scraps and turning it into something amazing. So sorry to cut you off, but that I thought had to put in a plug.
Yeah, and I think that was awesome. It's been, and still being a newbie on the team, seeing that product and the process with that, it's so cool because you are using remnant scraps from the factory that otherwise may have gone to waste. You are giving, and we as a brand are giving our sewers creative control over how the pack comes to life. So they're all one of a kind and unique, and really allows the creator and the sewer and the garment workers to bring that to life on their own terms. And then that comes to life on our website, and just some really fun, vibrant, unique packs, just very one of a kind product. And then really like where I start to come into that is like, how do you shape and tell the story? How do we want to bring this to life to the consumer? Explain the benefit, not only from like that purchase perspective of like, to Annie's point of like, we all need to buy less stuff, but like, maybe you're buying something, you're thoughtfully buying things that may otherwise have gone to waste, and you're giving it a second life. So that upcycled economy, and how can Cotopaxi really be, a leader in that process? And then just finally all the way through to seeing it live on a store shelf or on a website, and just telling the story along the way of how it was built and why it matters. And I think with the marketing side of that, it's so important to tell stories today. I think the most successful marketers and brands are really just telling, I know authentic is a very overused buzzword these days, but telling compelling stories that mean something to somebody, beyond just like the use case scenario of this pack does X, Y, Z, but what went into the builds of this pack and why, and why we were thoughtful in our design process and our lessening our impact on the environment, and how that's important to get consumers thinking about that as well. So really just telling that story from start to finish.
That's awesome. I want to come back to this too, but I think this is awesome. Annie, I want to come back to what we had talked about with you, just that this idea of marketing that supports a mission rather than a mission that supports marketing or a brand. Tell us about what does that mean for Cotopaxi? How do you do that?
I think for me, it means thinking very holistic about mission. It's not just giving, it's to what Carie was really mentioning. It's how we're sourcing materials. What are our workers' livelihoods like in the factories where we source our materials? How are we considering human rights? How are we thinking about our waste stream? How are we thinking about the emotional well-being of our consumers and thinking about responsible marketing in 2021? It's kind of being on the edge of thinking not just about one aspect of our business, but really thinking about business comprehensively and a brand comprehensively, and about how it can stand for something more than itself. And similar to what Carie was saying, the term authentic has become such a cliche, but it's true. Today's consumers are not given enough credit by a lot of brands. You should assume your consumers are smarter than you, that they're up to date, that they're informed, that they're passionate about these issues, that dumbed down marketing doesn't work. Greenwashing doesn't work anymore. Today's consumers are skeptical, they're scientific, they're informed, they have access to too much information, not too little. So you need to provide education. And if you are serious about having an impact, marketing should be seen as an opportunity space and not leveraging in this kind of predatory way sustainability or impact to lure customers to buy your items, but more seeing consumers as active investors in your value proposition and stakeholders, and treating them with dignity and respect, and using marketing as a way of reinforcing your values. I think that not enough brands are thinking about it that way. And it's not to say we're always doing that. We're a tiny startup, so sometimes we don't get to be as intentional as we want to be. Sometimes we're flying by the seat of our pants. Carie has been like a wunderkind in terms of like actually bringing some process and experience into a very important role. But I just think we try to like lead with our heart, and we have very decent, non-creepy people on our sales and marketing team, and that matters.
Yeah, I love that. For those of you who couldn't see me, I'm just raising my hands over here as Annie's speaking about this, because I think what she's saying is so applicable. It doesn't matter even if it's a B Corp or not, that the things that you're talking about are so true today across all industries, that marketing doesn't have to have a marketing problem and be seen as slimy and salesy. And as a business, you should be thinking more holistically about the impact that you have, and be real. Anyways, I could go on and on about it, but I love everything you're saying, because I think it's so applicable for, all companies out there, for profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter. And I think that what you talked about are key elements today of building a strong brand. Regardless of the type of company or organization you're in, you have to be real. You have to be authentic. You have to create an engaging experience for your customers. You have to stand for something that they really care about. All those things that you're talking about that are really driven by your mission are key parts of building a really strong brand. So, Carie, what would you add to just what Annie said there too?
I loved everything she said. I should be cheering too, with the hands in the air. Everything. I couldn't agree more with all of it. And I think, consumers are in the driver's seat. You said that best. And I think the marketers and the brands that don't acknowledge that are going to really suffer in, now, but going into the next couple of decades, is millennials and Gen Z, these younger generations are just, it's so important to them, causes, things that matter to them, giving back, saving the planet. Like, these are things that they value deeply and like want to step up in a big way and in masses and help contribute to. And if brands aren't aligning with that, I think that it's just going to get lost. Their brands will be lost. I think the older brands that have struggled with that, they're going to continue to, because they're just not making that authentic connection, our favorite word, authentic, that they're not making that connection, or it might feel forced, or that, if a brand is like, oh, we have to like start giving back, or we have to have an impact, it's like you're jumping on the train, so to speak, but you're not walking the talk from the start. And I think that that's important. Not that a brand can't come in and change and start being meaningful with, their manufacturing process, their supply chain, giving back in a bigger way. I think every brand should be doing this, but the ones that are super intentional and thoughtful from the start, and Cotopaxi is that from the very beginning. Everything I've learned and just seen on the day-to-day of working for this brand in my short time has been like, we are in business to help alleviate poverty, to fight poverty. And it's really, really incredible. And there's so many brands that I think could help contribute to that, and hopefully that they do.
Love that. So, Carie, I want to ask you another question. I think it's pretty clear and obvious how, at Cotopaxi, where the mission is so critical from the very start, it's infused into even the type of organization that it is, right? It's so clear how you can leverage marketing to create impact in your role, right? I think that's pretty obvious and pretty clear. What about listeners who don't work for a B Corp, right? How can they be authentic, again, coming back to that, in supporting a mission and driving impact through their marketing?
That's a great question. If it is okay, I'd love to use Leatherman as a little bit of an example on that. It's like Leatherman's not a B corporation, and my time there, the product, everything that brand stands for is to prepare somebody for the unexpected. And the multi-tool does that. Fix a flat, fix something or another. You've got a knife, a screwdriver. You've got so many different tools at your hands. So that preparedness mindset really started to translate into like, okay, how can we help prepare and help and give back? And the Red Cross came to mind, right? Of like, that is what the Red Cross is really doing, is helping prepare people when disaster strikes. And so I would say, to the high level of your question of like, a brand could be looking more internally at like what they stand for, maybe from a product perspective of like why they went to business to begin with, and like what benefit does their product bring to the consumer. So for Leatherman, it was preparedness. Like, you feel more prepared and empowered when you have a tool on you. To go back and look at your backbone and foundation of like what you stand for, and see how that could translate in a philanthropic way.
I love that. Annie, is there anything you might add to that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Carie already jumped to the right place, where I think a lot of marketers sometimes have a tendency to just pick one product or have one impact campaign, rather than going to where Carie was saying, which is your value. Like, what are your values? What do you stand for? What are you in business for? What brought your family of employees together around an idea? And that's where you want to start. You can't just do a campaign. It's going to fall flat. And actually, you might get a lot of negative backlash if you're marketing something around sustainability and impact, and it's not part of something robust and truthful and enriching. And so you want to start with the values and the programs first, and start somewhere. I would say, as a company at Cotopaxi, I can tell you 10 things we're doing super well. I can tell you 10 things we're not doing well and we're really struggling with. Sustainability, human rights, supply chain, corporate social responsibility. These are really complex spaces to be in. We're living in a very volatile world, and it's really important to always have a mindset on, you know, what's not going well and what are you tackling next. So start somewhere. Start just with what Carie is saying. Tap into your existing values and start to think about and using that mindset of your kind of impact officer, which anyone can put that hat on and start thinking like that, and tapping into that like more soulful intentionalism, and then market from there.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many applications for that too. Again, bringing that back to building a strong brand. Doesn't matter what type of organization you are, you know, really what a brand is all about is helping the world understand who you are as an organization at your core and what you stand for. So I think there's lots of ties there. So Carie, switching directions a little bit, you know, how does this mission that's such a core part of Cotopaxi, the company, how does that change how you approach collaboration and partnerships? And as an example, I mean, it could impact so many different aspects of the marketing, but like, let's focus on that, like that collaboration and partnership piece. How does the mission, you know, change how you approach that?
I think for like the first step, and just like it makes it an easy like go or no go, is like when we're approaching an organization, or we're starting to like, you know, have a consideration set of these types of organizations we want to partner with, the first check on yes or no is like, you know, if it's not a B Corp, do they have like-minded values, right? If they are trying to develop impact and try to do more than people, you know, do more than just put profit above people and planet. If they're trying to just make a difference, I think that is the first checkbox that we approach. And if the answer is no on that, and Annie, you actually have a great example. I'm teeing you up with a retailer that it was in your first week or so of you starting that you'd found some, you can share that if you'd like.
Tell us, Annie. Yeah, I want to hear.
Refreshing, but I mean, one of the things the company does before it partners is it just has me vet them, which is great, because I know how to vet companies and see like, yeah, they have their like giving program, but they only say how much they're giving, not their impacts. But yeah, 2 weeks into Cotopaxi, we had an opportunity to be in every store for one of the bigger fashion retailers out there. And I knew they weren't a good company. They'd supported a bunch of lobbying efforts I really wasn't in favor of from a corporate social responsibility standpoint. They had many active lawsuits against them, my native tribes, for cultural appropriation. And I went to our CMO, who I was reporting to at the time, and was like, hey, I get it. We're growing business. You're probably going to have to say yes to this. Like, I made this whole pitch, but like, around making the business case for why we shouldn't work with this terrible retailer. And he's like, just give me the information. So I just gave him the information. He was like, oh, gross. We're not going to work with them. And I was like, really? Like, it was that easy. And so I think it's one thing to market your values. It's another to make decisions based on them. And there are trade-offs. There are definitely trade-offs. And I feel like there was a moment in corporate social responsibility where everyone was preaching the win-win. It's not always win-win. Sometimes you have to make a hard call as a company about what you stand for. And I would say that those things might not end up in your marketing, but your marketing around impact is not going to be successful if you're not living your values internally and externally. You're going to get called out by your consumers, and you will probably end up causing more damage for your brand than you do assisting it through telling stories around sustainability and impact. So it's just something to keep in mind. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's great advice. So Carie, what would you add?
I love that example. It just stood out to me. It's something I think I'll never forget. And I think you'd share that in my interview process. You have to make a hard call. I mean, this particular example could have turned into a very big retailer for the brand, really, and had grown it exponentially through that fashion-esque channel. And for Cotopaxi to say no, right then and there, of like, okay, we've done our vetting, we've done the research. We don't feel like this would be a like-minded partner to support what we stand for and what we embody. And this could potentially hurt us. Is like, it's a risk that we're saying no. But I love that example so much, because it really is like we're walking the talk. So doing that thorough vetting, really understanding the partner from top to bottom and what they stand for, what they're involved in is really important. And then from there is like, once you've reached that checkbox, is like, are we like-minded brands? Are we trying to go after the same goals here? What kind of product do we want to collaborate on? If it's a product collaboration, for example, what fun things can we do? I think on the product side of things, the development is it's been super fun just to see some of the stuff we've come up with. Is just bright, fun, unique colors, repurposed materials, recycled materials, unique, like one of a kind types of opportunities. We did a collaboration with Teva last year, and it was super fun from the outside looking in and seeing that. When I saw that drop, I was like, this is so cool. Look at Cotopaxi doing this with Teva, and then building off of that, in 21 and beyond is going to be a lot of fun work that we're about to kick off.
Cool. Well, excited to see what that holds. And I think that what you outlined makes total sense. And again, applicable for any company to start with that core. What do you stand for? And make sure that, Annie, I really like what you said. It's one thing how'd you say it? It's one thing to make decisions based on those values, right? It's one thing to talk about them. It's another to make decisions based on that. So, Carie, I have to ask you too, just because it's, I think, such a cool part of marketing that Cotopaxi does. Tell us briefly about the Questable for those who aren't aware of it, because I think it's just so fun, and really how it helps build awareness for going back to your mission again.
Yeah, so Questable is an adventure race like no other. And in my time, like working on it, I'm working on a upcoming Questable actually right now. So we're excited to launch that soon. But it is just this really cool event that brings people together to get out and team build and do something with your friends, complete challenges and tasks that really kind of embody the Cotopaxi brand. And so I would say for all the years leading up to COVID, that these events were in person, and they were thousands of people. And I know that Cotopaxi was doing upwards of almost 50 Questables a year. Wow. So just having a very large quantity of events in different cities where they're getting people, really encouraging the sense of community to get out in your own local community to explore it through art, through outdoors, through doing good and volunteering, giving back to the community. There's challenges that each team has to complete, and they take photo or video to show proof, upload it to our Questable app, and then that's how they're competing to earn prizes. To the more points, then the prizes, you win prizes for that. And then last year during COVID times, the team shifted, I think, and again, I wasn't on the team, so kind of looking at it from the outside in, the team shifted gloriously to creating Quarantine Questable. and really adapting this Questable event to being something that you can do during quarantine, of like quite literally like during the time where we really were all supposed to stay inside. It was last, I think, March, April, around that time frame for when quarantine happened. But all of these challenges, like to do in your home with your family, with the kids, just some just fun ways to engage when you otherwise couldn't, have a sense of normalcy, right? I think everyone really was feeling that last March, April, when COVID started to really descend upon us. And it's just, I think, a great embodiment of the brand of like getting people out there together to do something bigger, whether that is doing good and volunteering in the community, getting out and exploring your local community and the history around it, getting outside, maybe cleaning up a trail. It's just a really fun and unique way. I mean, we kicked off Quarantine Questable with like, give us your best llama call. And the video that we'll have to include this for people to view. It was like 6 minutes of like all these clips of people just videoing their best llama calls, or one girl like dressed up as a llama and she like hopped up to her friend and just like spit water on her. Like it's just like they're so creative and really fun. So I think it's a way for people just to let loose and just explore and adventure. And I think that's a great embodiment of who Cotopaxi is.
Yeah, I will agree. I was a participant a few years ago, and I just love doing it with some of my brothers and cousins. And I mean, we have still all these awesome pictures and videos we did from it. And I think what also is so great about it is it's not just about that, but you're also teaching people about that mission and about your brand and what you stand for through some of those tasks. Like you said, it's getting out and cleaning up a trail or doing some other activities that really add and bring good to your community and uplift those around you. And it's just an awesome, awesome experience. Annie, anything you'd add about Questable?
I think one really cool feature of Quarantine was that it was a suggested donation towards the Cotopaxi Foundation. And that's something I think we're all really proud of at Cotopaxi, and was a huge goal of mine, and why I launched the foundation with support from leadership, is so that we could provide our customers with responsible ways of giving to the programs we supported. And I think there's so much information around issues right now, but it can feel completely overwhelming. And we want to be the brand that doesn't just educate a consumer on issues, but provides them really uplifting, optimistic, and easy ways for them to give back. And so that Quarantine was a really great example of that. It contributed tremendously to the International Rescue Committee's response fund for COVID. And it helped, it had a massive impact on refugee lives through that particular fundraising event, which was also engaged and had such fun elements of guerrilla marketing that were virtual. And it was just a really great integration of marketing and impact, in my opinion. And it was I think, hopefully the first of a few virtual Questivals, and really kind of leaning into that even more.
Love that. So tell me a little bit more about that. Are there other untapped channels or ideas that are floating around about both educating customers about your mission, but also helping them get involved?
Oh my gosh, so many.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have like a million ideas a day. Everyone has such great ideas. Everyone's so passionate about it. And I'm the first to admit I'm pretty type A, and it's my job to kind of do the research, but I get to work with such amazingly creative people at Cotopaxi, which has been such a breath of fresh air for me. And it really blows my mind every day. But there's so many areas I think that we want to lean into. I think community engagement, leaning into more virtual events, thinking about events in general, thinking about how to become an even more experiential brand, thinking about, really pivoting away from competition-based capitalism to collaboration-based capitalism, thinking more about partnerships. And less about competitors and more about opportunities. I think there's so many areas for that, but also staying within the guardrails of what's achievable, and really thinking about being very disciplined about what we try to go after, and not just experimenting all the time.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Carie, what would you add?
I love all of that. And I would say, yeah, there's a million ideas a day. And I've felt that since I've come on board. It's just like the ideas don't stop for like where we can take this brand and through all the different channels of marketing, how you can bring it to life. One example I'm thinking of in particular, and I can't take credit for the idea of how it sparked in my head, but one of our coworkers, Heath, he oversees all of our sales channels, international. He wears a lot of hats and he's awesome. And one of the things he said to me that stood out, and it's like I'm mindful of as we're starting to plan seasonal stories and developments, is, the opportunity for us to really tell that mission at retail and with our retail partners like an REI or that outdoor specialty shop of like, how are we bringing it to life beyond? And so what he said that stood out to me was like a customer walks into an REI or they walk into one of our retailers and they see the bright jacket on the wall. And it's like our product jumps off the wall in the sea of like the darker jackets and apparel and that you're seeing when you walk into these stores. But if that is a consumer's first touch point, they're just seeing, oh, Cotopaxi, they make really fun, like bright retro. They don't know the backstory to the full degree beyond what's on the tag on the jacket when they're pulling it off of a rack. So like, how can we bring that mission to life at retail and really help build and develop that presence and the assets that we would create, and through video, through pop-up shops, there's all kinds of different ways that you can bring that to life. But something that's like very top of mind for me as we're building out strategy moving forward is like, it feels like a very untapped channel for us to build off of.
It's so exciting. I love hearing those examples too. And, one of the biggest takeaways I think from this whole conversation again is whether you're a B Corp or a nonprofit or a for-profit, doesn't matter what type of organization, if you can start with that mission that's true and core, it helps you make decisions and innovate, right? Like I love, Carie, hearing you talk about that, where you have this mission, how can you better help communicate that mission at different touch points? And that brings all of these different ideas and gets you excited, I think, as a marketer and I think that's why both of you probably are saying there's just an endless supply of ideas here, because you've solidified and started with that core mission. And now it's just about how do you go about fulfilling that? Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time again to share your insights and your experiences and kind of the story of Cotopaxi. If there are listeners that want to get in touch with either of you and have follow-up questions, what's the best way for them to do that? Annie?
Yeah, I would say, I'm available on LinkedIn, Annie Agle. I'd also say follow Cotopaxi on LinkedIn, our Instagram channels. We do some, we try to keep our audience and stakeholders informed of all shapes and stripes. So you can follow us there.
Awesome. And Carie, what about for you?
Yeah, same LinkedIn for me, Carie Behe. And then the Cotopaxi channels, we're doing some really cool stuff on there and just telling fun stories. And then through LinkedIn as well, I would say from like the business story perspective, Cotopaxi's LinkedIn is really a great way to understand what we're doing from the higher level.
Love it. This has been such an awesome, informative conversation. Thank you both so much for taking the time to do this today. Hope you have a great rest of the day and super excited to see what the future holds for the Cotopaxi brand.
Thank you so much for having us, and best of luck to you as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been fun.